Hey, welcome everyone to a review of the Sony WH-CH720N, which I'll just call the 720 for the rest of the review for simplicity. If you want to see the written version of this review, you can find a link to my website in the video description. Okay, so jumping straight into it, I might make some comparisons to the previous version, the 710, which I have reviewed. A link to that is in the video description. And we'll jump off with the pricing, which is not consistent for some reason. So what you see here is basically my rough draft script for this video. And you'll see that the pricing here in Canada is $249. In the US, it's $149. The pricing below that you see from other geographies like Japan, UK, Canada, so on and so forth, are all from the official local website. So for example, that pricing is from Japan Sony website, UK Sony website, Canada Sony website, so on and so forth. And it converted the local currency of each country into USD. Japan and UK surprisingly turned out to be cheaper than the US. That's very surprising to me. But Canada, India, and Singapore are marked up like crazy. I can understand in Sony's defense, some countries importing can be a bit more expensive, so they have to mark up the price. But here in Canada, it's not that difficult. I mean, we're neighboring the US, I know this. A lot of Sony products of other types and from other manufacturers, they usually convert the currency. They don't mark it up on purpose in Canada. This is the second time Sony's done this recently. The 520, which released just the same time as the 720, they did that. No clue why. Switching over to connectivity, it supports a wired and wireless connection. The wired connection supports a 3.5mm auxiliary connection, and the port for connectivity is on the left ear cup at the bottom. And here's some good news that even if the battery dies on these headphones, you can still listen to audio using the wired connection. In terms of wireless technology, it supports Bluetooth 5.2, and according to Sony, it supports a range of about 30 feet. I got way better than that. I was able to get about 60 feet with 3 walls in between before the connection was a little rocky. However, there are some other major issues with the Bluetooth connectivity. It doesn't matter if I'm 5 feet away from my device or 20 feet, whatever it may be. The connection is not that stable. It'll randomly disconnect from my device. So for example, a lot of my testing was done while connected to my laptop. And randomly at times, 3 to 4 times per battery cycle, the headphones will just stop their Bluetooth connection. And of course, then the laptop speakers start blasting music and I'm like, whoa! And then my family looks at me like I'm a weirdo. So I just kind of pretend like, yeah, I was dancing. That was all planned. That was all, I'm natural. Except my dancing is horrible, so my family thinks I'm a bigger loser anyway. And I thought this was a laptop issue, so a lot of the testing I did with my cell phone. Except the issue persists there. In fact, the issue there is kind of bizarre in its own way because sometimes I will get a Bluetooth connection, working just fine. I'm playing audio. I'll open the Sony Connect app for the headphone controls. The app is like, it's not connected to the headphones. I'm not sure what's going on. I thought that I had a faulty unit. Turned out it's not the case. There's a Reddit forum post in which the original poster complained about the same problem and a lot of people replying are saying, yep, they have the exact same issue. So hopefully Sony fixes with the future firmware update, but just keep in mind that when it does disconnect, it's for about 5 seconds at a time and then randomly reconnects. Now the previous version, the 710, did not support multi-point connect. The 720 does. What that basically means is you connect to 2 devices at the same time, but you must turn that feature on in your phone app. I don't know why, it's not on by default. And then you can do 2 things at the same time. So you can listen to music on your computer, have it connected to your phone, and if the phone rings, media will pause and you can answer your call quickly. Works great. When it comes to devices and memory, which basically means how many devices you can connect to the headphones without having to repair them all over again manually, in my testing I was able to give out 5 devices, works fine. Although Sony documentation says you can get up to 8, which is plenty of devices. In regards to accessories, this is a mid-tier priced headphones, except of course, as I mentioned, in some countries it's rather expensive. So you would expect some sort of traveler's case, even a soft one. Nothing's included of the sort. You're gonna have to make do without. All that's included in the box is a USB-A to USB-C cable measuring at about 8.5 inches. And the unfortunate thing here is in 2023, it's not pure USB-C as it should have been. Also included is the auxiliary cable measuring at 3.9 feet. One of the great things about this over the 710 is that the 720 has a more cleaner and premium look, despite still being in the same price range as its predecessor. The plastic on the body doesn't look as cheap as the 710, and this option comes in 3 colors, black, blue, and white. Although color availability might vary depending on region. What I find interesting is that the previous version, the 710, was heavier at 223 grams, whereas the 720 is lighter at 192 grams, except the 720 feels tougher in the hand, it feels more firm, and the body feels quite well built for the price. One thing to keep in mind about the body is that it doesn't collapse in the ear cups to fold in for slightly better portability when traveling, but I find that to be a good thing because it usually means that the body becomes weaker. There's no information on it being dust or water resistant, which usually means it's not, so don't get it too dirty or wet or you might damage the unit. Another thing to keep in mind is that there's no official ear cup replacements from Sony, so if you get them damaged, you might be out of luck unless you're lucky enough that a third-party vendor manufactures them. Now, when it comes to comfort, they are great. They feel slightly better than the 710. I can wear these for 3 hours straight. I don't get sweaty ears, they don't get warm, they don't feel stuffy. It's overall comfortable. Despite them not making my ears sweaty, I do not recommend these for exercising because they are over-the-ear headphones. Your ears will get very sweaty very quickly in that scenario. But of course, to each their own. If you're still interested, if you're looking down excessively, like maybe you're prepping for a deadlift, you have to look down, they move forward the headband up 1 centimeter, so nothing too concerning there. Some of the elements that help for the comfort are the ear cushions. They feel great and are slightly softer than the 710. Also, the interior headband has some decent amount of cushioning for those that have next to no hair. The headband flex isn't bad and they don't squeeze too tight over your head. The headband extension itself is done through notches, it's not a slider, and the ear cups have decent rotation going up, down, forward, and back. When it comes to resting on your neck, and this is where I don't need foldable ear cups, it feels pretty comfortable. I can turn my head left and right. My chin just barely touches the ear cups, but if your neck is shorter, that'll be a bit of an annoyance. Looking down is not a problem too much. It's okay. You can fold the ear cups up. I find it much more better for looking around. So you have some decent options there. Jumping over to the left ear cup at the back is a single button for powering the device on and off, and holding it is also Bluetooth pairing mode. When it comes to media controls, it's all on the right ear cup at the back. The top button is for volume up and the bottom button is for volume down. The middle button is for play, pause, or answering or hanging up a call. Double tap for next track, triple tap for previous track, another set of commands to go faster in the same track, another command to go rewind within the same track, and you kind of get the idea. It's also used for activating your mobile assistant. That could be Google Assistant, Siri, or Amazon. But here's my issue with this. There are too many functions on a single middle button. What I don't get is that the 520 from Sony, which I have reviewed, a link to that is in the video description, is less than half the price of the 720. They both released on the exact same day, but the 520 has way better controls. You see, pressing and holding volume up will go to the next track. Pressing and holding volume down will go to the previous track. There's not too many commands on a single button. This is really annoying about the 720. And switching over to the bottom of the right ear cup is ANC cycle mode button. What that basically means is ANC is active noise canceling, so you can have the microphones pick up all exterior noise, negate it, and it'll try to make your environment quieter for you so you can listen to your audio better. Another mode is ambient mode, which basically has the microphones listening to your surroundings, but this time projecting the sound into the earphones so you can hear your surroundings better. The last mode is just regular headphone mode with all technology off. It's just simply listening to audio and that's it. One thing I want to mention that's not typically found in most mid-tier price headphones, but I'll mention it anyway, is that there's no passive play pause. So basically, you're wearing the headphones, stuff is playing. When you take them off, it'll automatically pause your content, and when you put them back on, it'll automatically resume. That feature is not available in these headphones. Okay, so let's talk about ANC mode. There's some big hype over it because it's using a Sony V1 chip and all this stuff. It's a little disappointing, I have to say, to the least. And here's why. When it comes to low pitch sounds, like say riding in the bus, your stove fan is on, it has like a humming noise from the fan, it will cancel a lot of it. Not as good as premium headphones, like say the Sony XM5s, which a link to that review will, also be in the video description. Those are killer. Some of the Bose headphones are great at it, but those are premium top-of-the-line headphones. This is mid-tier. This does an okay job. It's just adequate for traveling. Maybe, with a catch. The catch is, if you're in a bus and people are talking loud, you can hear almost everything in noise-canceling mode. I have people talking next to me. It does very little compared to just having headphone mode. So no technology on. There's hardly any difference. And when it comes to high-pitched sounds, there's next to no cancellation at all. Everything will just come through. Even my children's toy drill doesn't make that much noise. It's not that loud. I can hear it almost exactly the same as if I was using regular headphone mode. So ANC will not be that spectacular. If that's what you're looking for this mid-tier price, don't look for that. Look for the sound quality, which I'll get into very shortly. So when it comes to passive noise canceling, so just simply wearing the headphones, it does not bad. A lot of the low humming sounds, they still come through, but they're muffled by quite a bit actually. When it comes to vocals and high-pitched noises, again, muffled, but they'll come through a lot stronger than those low humming sounds. It's kind of what you expect, but that's thanks to the thick ear cups that surround your ears, because again, they're over-the-ear headphones. When it comes to ambient mode, It's just okay. It's what you can expect at mid-tier price headphones. Someone talking to you within 5 feet at normal volume sounds okay. Anyone beyond 5 feet, it's hard to hear them. They get slightly muffled. Any other exterior noises around you, if like you're trying to hear an announcement on a speaker when your plane is going to land at an airport, don't rely on it. It might be hard to hear. You're better off leaving your headphones off at that point. But first, we're going to cover battery. When it comes to ANC mode, Sony advertises 35 hours of usage. Now, when it comes to my testing, ANC mode and ambient mode, one or the other, doesn't matter. I got the same average of, get this, 50 hours in each mode. In regular headphone mode with no technology, get this, I got a crazy 75-hour average performance. When it comes to battery recharge time, Sony advertises 3.5 hours, but I got it in less, in 2.5 hours. Which means that even charging for an hour will give you 10 hours of performance back easily. The charging port is USB-C and located at the bottom left ear cup. Okay, so we're gonna do some microphone sample tests. What you're hearing everything right now is through the 720 microphone in a quiet environment. Then I'm gonna switch over to a noisy replicated environment using the camera microphone so you can see how noisy it is. And then in the same environment, switch over to the 720 mic to see if you can isolate a lot of the surrounding noise. Then we're gonna do a wind test to see if you can block out a lot of exterior wind noise. Okay, so we're in a noisy environment with my camera microphone. It's not that great, is it? Let's go to the 720 to see how it sounds and if it's isolating a lot of noise. So I'm going to stop talking for a few seconds. Okay, so now replicating a windy environment with the fan sitting about 4 feet away from me. See if you guys can pick up any wind noise or not. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, sound quality is what you're going to be really interested in. It's actually really darn good. It's better than the 710 by quite a bit. It's nothing like premium headphones. Again, it's a mid-tier price is what you expect. However, out of the box with the flat profile, there is some extra emphasis on bass. That's very typical of Sony headphones. Even though this is not part of their extra bass lineup, it's a slightly bigger punch there. Nothing that'll ruin it for people that aren't bass enthusiasts. And you can adjust that in the equalizer, which I'll show later on. But yeah, you will notice a slightly bigger punch on bass. Mids and highs perform relatively well out of the box. Now, when you adjust the equalizer, now when it comes to adjusting lows, mids, and highs, I noticed that it's relatively well balanced. So for example, if I make bass higher, mids and highs don't suffer that much. They seem relatively okay. And then the same can be said about anything other being adjusted, which is a pretty rare feat, especially for Sony headphones. They usually tend to muffle something else as a sacrifice. Overall audio quality for mid-tier pricing is pretty darn good. And for audio codecs, it does support AAC and SBC. At mid-tier pricing here in 2023, it's a little disappointing it doesn't support aptX, but again, audio quality seems to be doing fairly well given the price tag. When it comes to DSEE, which is technology used by Sony and you can activate it in the app, I noticed no difference when turning it on or off. Still sounds relatively the same. Okay, so jumping into the Connect app, what you see in the main status screen isn't of too much importance. It tells you what you're connected to and you have some media controls at the bottom. If you go over to adaptive sound control, what this basically tries to do is detect if you're moving or not and automatically turn on ANC mode, ambient mode for you. This is very gimmicky and very finicky. I don't recommend you use it. Even on premium headphones like the XM5s, it doesn't work that well. I just recommend you keep it off. Going over to sound is where most of the important controls are. You can change between your sound modes here if you want to not use the physical control button on the headphones themselves. You have the equalizer here with some preset settings if you want to use them, or you can manually adjust them. So you have your regular equalizer at the top and then the extra bass, clear bass control at the bottom in typical Sony fashion. So you can bump the bass up even higher. Continuing on, you can prioritize sound quality over stable Bluetooth connection. And yes, even with stable Bluetooth connection selected, the Bluetooth is still not that stable. Switching over to the System tab, this is where you want to activate the function to allow two devices connected at the same time. You can choose which voice assistant function you want to have used with your device. And of course, the ANC button on the headphones, you can choose which features you want to cycle through if you want to disable any of them for whatever reason. There's also power saving mode off. If you want to power them off automatically or not. You have voice guidance. So for example, tapping the power button will simply tell you how much percentage is left into battery. You can turn that kind of feature off or on. And of course, firmware updates and all the other fun stuff. With the 720, Sony had a chance to redeem themselves, but they didn't exactly. I mean, they kind of fixed some things, but then in other areas it took a step back. And I find that strange because when it came to the 510, which is much cheaper headphones, it had its fair share of shortcomings as well. Except with the 520, the newer version, Sony redeemed themselves. But the thing is, they both released on the same date, the 720 and 520. Why did Sony do such a great job with the 520, but kind of lackluster in the 720? It's kind of weird. So despite knowing some of its shortcomings, it's up to you if you still want to get them. Hopefully some of them can be fixed with firmware updates, but I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to check my social links and website link in the video description. Hit the like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.